Hola todos! It's that time again. Most highly anticipated YouTube clip of the year, maybe, when Senior Vangel is back at it again, explaining another grammar point. I know you can't wait, so let's get right into it. This is Chapter 4, Capítulo 4, Gramática 2, second grammar point. It's called Expresiones con el infinitivo, expressions with the infinitive. So what we're going to do in this screencast, this action-packed, highly entertaining screencast, is go over what the infinitive actually is, what it means. We're going to see the expressions that we're going to use in this chapter. I even added a couple. And we're going to go over the kind of rules to using these expressions with the infinitive. So let's not delay anymore. Let's take a look at what the book has to show us. So our book page looks like this. So if you need to navigate to it, you can see over here we have Gramática, and it's the second one down. So a couple things to point out here. The first thing, it says te acuerdas, which means do you remember? Remember that you have already learned the verbs tener and ir, and I also threw in one with estar. So if you need to review what the conjugations look like, you can look back in your notes or go over here to Capítulo 2 to take a look at tener, and Capítulo 3 to take a look at ir and estar to review those conjugations. Okay, I'm not going to spend time going over that. So you can pause this and read this and take a look at it. You can go back to it, or you can find it in the book on your own. But let's take a look at what an expression with the infinitive looks like. ¿Qué desean ustedes tomar? What do you guys wish to have? To have is the infinitive. Debes estudiar y aprender más. You should study and learn more. You ought to study and to learn more. So these are expressions with the infinitive. You'll see these later. Those are 3 of our 5 expressions. Like I said, I added a couple. So if you need to come back here and take a look at that, that's no problem. But there's the explanation that the book gives. So let's scroll down here and let's talk about what el infinitivo actually is. And don't forget, you're going to want to fill in your notes. Your first required assignment is your notes. And this will help you. The infinitive is the unconjugated version of a verb. That means that you haven't touched it. It's the verb when it still means to do something. So for example, it always ends in Spanish in AR, ER, or IR. Hablar means to speak. ER, comer, means to eat. And vivir, IR verb, means to live. So it's the unconjugated version. It's not I live, you live, I eat, they eat. It's not conjugated. So it's untouched. It's the form that you'd see if you looked it up in a dictionary. So that's what the infinitive is. If we take a look at our special expressions, you're going to see, hopefully, how it fits in to what we're trying to do here. We have tener que, which means to have to. And you see that the to is on the end of it. It fits right in with that infinitive, to have to study. So you're seeing how this expression is going to link right up with an infinitive, to have to. Ir a. And again, if you need to go over that, take a look. Go back into Chapter 3 and take a look at that verb conjugation. Most of you probably know it, but if you don't, you got to go back because we're moving on. To be going to. So when you say, I'm going to go to the mall, kind of simple future tense. Again, I'm going to go. The infinitive fits right in. Acabar de is a little bit not as smooth of a translation, but a very important expression. To have just something. To have just done something. I have just eaten. Acabo de comer. Right? And you see how after the de, the infinitive, the unconjugated verb, goes right in there. Now we have the 2 that I add here. Estar por, to be about to do something. This is kind of close to be going to do something, but I'm about to eat. You use estar por. And then deber is on our vocab list, and I figured it should probably go on this list because when you say you should do something, you ought to do something, it fits right in with the infinitive. Debes estudiar, like the example we just saw in the book. You should study. You ought to study. So there are 5 expressions. Make sure to fill these in on your notes as we're going through. So let's move to really the rules of this section here. An infinitive always comes after a conjugated verb or another word. You can never, ever, ever have two conjugated verbs in a row. That is the same in English. And if you don't understand what I'm talking about, take a look at these examples here. I'm just going to change to the pen so I can mark up some things. So, tengo, como. Well, you know tengo means I have and como means I eat. So those two things together are two conjugated verbs right next to each other. I have, I eat. That makes no sense. We don't want to do this. This is incorrect. Now, based on the notes and what we're studying here, tengo que means to have to do something. So when you say tengo que, it means I have to, and then you're going to put that infinitive, this er, unconjugated. Tengo que comer means I have to eat. And all five of those other expressions are going to function the same way. You conjugate or put the right form of the first verb in the expression, but the second one is going to, you just leave it alone. Tengo que comer. If you say, I have to speak, you're going to say, tengo que hablar, right? You're not going to conjugate it at all, and that's the correct use in Spanish and in English. Now, obviously in English, we don't have tengo que, but we have I have to do, right? I have to eat. That to, the to, is our version of an infinitive in English. So you can't have two conjugated verbs next to each other in English either. You never say in English, I have, I go. I go, right? I'm going, I go. You never say those things, and you don't in Spanish either. You have to use these special expressions, and you can throw the infinitive in, like we saw in the book example. It says, ¿Qué desean ustedes tomar? ¿Qué desea usted tomar? You can throw the infinitive after any really conjugated verb as long as it makes sense. But for this chapter, you really want to get to know those five expressions. So don't forget to fill in your notes. That's your first assignment. And you also have to come up with your own sentence on the notes before you turn them in. So that's it really for this chapter. You have those five expressions, and you're going to have a required assignment. But for now, you can rewind this, pause it, do whatever you need, watch it again, and fill in your notes, ask questions, and buena suerte.